December 31st, 2008. Redmond, Washington. A Microsoft executive opens a report that will ruin his week. Apple just sold $3.37 billion of iPods in a single quarter. Then came the marketing meetings. And this is where the story turns from smart tech company enters a market into corporate comedy. Someone in a boardroom decided the signature color for the flagship Zune should be brown. Not black, not silver, not white like the iPod that had basically become a fashion symbol. Brown, the color of a shipping box, the color of a UPS truck. In a world where Apple made white earbuds a status symbol you could spot across a subway car, Microsoft handed shoppers a device the color of a chocolate bar left in a hot car. The commercials didn't help. They were strange, artsy, almost apologetic, like Microsoft wasn't sure if it was selling a gadget or a mood. And the name itself, Zune, tested weirdly with consumers. It didn't roll off the tongue. It didn't mean anything. Compare that to iPod. Short, techy, futuristic, unforgettable. Marketing experts would later point out that Microsoft basically ran a masterclass in what not to do when you're the underdog. You don't out-brown the leader. You outcool them. Microsoft did neither. But the branding wasn't even the real killer. The real killer was timing and Microsoft's arrogance about it. By the time Zune launched in November 2006, the iPod had a 5-year head start and had already sold over 100 million units. Apple wasn't just selling hardware anymore. They'd built an entire vertical monopoly. iTunes had the music. iTunes had the movies. Every song you bought was locked to Apple's format. Every accessory maker on Earth was already designing docks and cases for the iPod's exact dimensions. Microsoft wasn't entering a hardware race. They were trying to break into a walled garden that had already locked its gates and thrown away the key. If you like breaking down exactly how a company's ego blinds them to a market that's already been won, hit subscribe now, because we're about to get to the decision that turned risky bet into billion-dollar disaster. Here's the fatal blind spot. Microsoft assumed brand power and deep pockets could beat a 5-year head start. They were wrong, and the sales numbers exposed it almost instantly. In its very first week, the original Zune grabbed about 9% of the US portable player market. Sounds decent until you see the iPod sitting at 63% in that same week. Within 6 months, Zune's share of the overall MP3 market had shrunk to around 3%. Bloomberg reported that between launch and mid-2007, Microsoft had only moved 1.2 million units. Apple was selling that many iPods in a matter of days during a good holiday season. Microsoft's response? Keep pouring money in. They released the Zune 4, 8, and 80 gigabyte models. Then a flash-based version. Then in 2009, the Zune HD genuinely well-reviewed, with an OLED touchscreen years ahead of budget competitors. Critics liked it. Consumers didn't buy it. By the summer of 2009, Zune's total market share had cratered to just 2%. 2% from a company worth hundreds of billions of dollars. The device was good. The moment to release it had already passed in 2003. And the financial bleeding was brutal and public. In the first quarter after launch, Microsoft's Entertainment and Devices division, the unit housing Zune and Xbox, reported a $289 million operating loss. By the end of 2007, that annual loss for the division had ballooned past $1.2 billion. In 2008, Microsoft was forced to write down $240 million in Zune-related assets, officially blaming, and I quote the filing, increased competition and lower than expected sales. Translation: nobody wants this. Behind the scenes, this wasn't just a product failing quietly. It was a warning sign about a much bigger problem festering inside Microsoft, a company so massive and so used to winning through Windows and Office licensing that it genuinely believed brute financial force could substitute for being first. That same mentality would later show up in Microsoft's phone business, its tablet business, its search engine. Zune wasn't an isolated flop. It was a preview of Microsoft spending the entire 2000s trying to buy its way into markets Apple and Google had already claimed by moving faster. By 2010, the writing was everywhere. Microsoft quietly announced it would stop producing new Zune hardware, shifting focus to software integration with Windows Phone. a device platform that, spoiler, would also eventually fail. In October 2011, all Zune hardware was officially discontinued. And in June 2012, Microsoft pulled the plug entirely, folding whatever remained into Xbox Music. The total damage across the life of the project, once you count hardware losses, marketing spend, write-downs, and the opportunity cost of years of engineering talent, estimates from industry analysts put the full bill north of $1 billion, with some broader estimates of Microsoft's total music and devices losses running into the billions once you include the years of restructuring that followed. Let that sink in. $1 trillion company, unlimited engineering talent, for major record labels already signed, a genuinely well-designed product by its final generation, and none of it mattered because the market had already crowned a winner before Microsoft even walked into the room. There was no fraud here, no scandal, no criminal executive, no smoking gun email. Just a slower, quieter kind of corporate death. The death of being right about the product and catastrophically wrong about the clock. The Zune became a punchline almost instantly. It showed up as a joke in Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, mocked as ancient technology in the 2010s. Engineers who worked on it have said in interviews that the internal team knew, deep down, that they were fighting a war that had already ended before they'd fired a shot. And maybe that's the real lesson buried in this billion-dollar failure. Money doesn't buy you a second chance at being first. Talent doesn't buy you a second chance at being first. Even 4 major record labels signing your dotted line don't buy you a second chance. Once a market crowns a winner and that winner builds a moat, an ecosystem, a format, a habit, showing up later with a better spec sheet isn't enough. Consumers don't reward better. They reward first and good enough. So the next time you see a massive company throw $1 billion at chasing a competitor that's already 5 years ahead, remember the Zune. Remember the brown box nobody wanted. Remember the $85 million in holiday sales sitting next to Apple's $3.37 billion. Being big doesn't save you from being late. If the story hit different, smash that subscribe button, because next week we're tearing into another company that thought money could outrun time, and lost everything proving it couldn't. See you then.